This Impact Wrestling review was brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Try it, and the next time MVP books a world title match, he won't put a wrestler in it who doesn't even work for the company. Over the years, there have been periods when TNA was really good, and other periods when it was absolutely awful. And a lot of the time, where there was one, the other would not be far behind. I think one of TNA's biggest problems to this day is consistency. Just guaranteeing a certain level of quality and delivering consistently good shows week after week after week. Now, usually you're more likely to get a good show, then a bad show, then another bad show, then a good show again, and so on. Just keeping the product consistently strong and polished and engaging for a lengthy period is unfortunately something they struggle with. So even though I'm sort of half expecting a monkey wrench to get thrown in there before too long, last week we had a show that I ended up enjoying despite the problems with it, and this show was another good one. This Impact had its time budgeted very well, had some good wrestling, some storyline advancement. Russo's fingerprints were still there, yes, but they were kept to a minimum. In fact, with the exception of the Abyss thing, which I'll get to in a minute, just about everything I thought made sense this week. It's weird what a difference that makes. And something else I appreciated, they were able to keep this show pretty fast-paced without cutting segments short or cutting out wrestlers' entrances and stuff. With one very notable exception. TNA. Cutting the entrance of a mere mortal like Bobby Roode is one thing. But cutting the entrance of a god among men, the new American icon of wrestling and wrestling's greatest hero, EC3, when he deserves not just an entrance, but a daily parade in his honor at the very least? What in the world were you thinking? Or were you even thinking at all? Shame on you, TNA. Shame on you. This show got off to a hot start with this tag team tables match. I'd like to think they learned something from that episode a couple weeks ago, how when starting off with action, you need to keep the energy level really high, but also make sure it doesn't overstay its welcome by going longer than it needs to, because you're setting the pace for the rest of the show here. And I think this was just about right. You had Bobby Roode and EC3 versus Bully Ray and Willow. The match was fun, a little on the short side, but when it's in the opening segment, that's better than it going too long. Thumbs up on that, although the psychology with the Willow character is still really messed up. I know I've said this before, but I don't see what the purpose of the Willow persona is exactly. So far this character has been completely ineffective and seems to be routinely causing the exact opposite of what he wants to accomplish. Rockstar Spud shows up in a wheelchair. I'm not sure why, since he was walking last week, but whatever. So Willow picks him up, carries him off to God knows where, and does not come back, leaving Bully Ray to then get double-teamed, lose the match for them, and get put through 3 tables in a row. It was a good match. I enjoyed it. But the Willow character seems very unfocused to me. Without some kind of method to his madness, he just comes off like a wacko who is as much of a danger to his allies as he is to his enemies, if not more so. It's kind of tough to get behind him if that's the case.
Oh, you were not aware of this?
TNA are in kind of a weird situation with this Samuel Shaw character. The gimmick itself is interesting, and there are things you can do with it. It's getting a reaction from the crowd. That might just be because of Anderson, but you can't write it off. So nearly everything about the character is working to some degree, even if it might not be for everyone. The problem is he doesn't have good matches. Sam Shaw is not a bad worker, but when they gave him this gimmick, they changed his wrestling style into something that just doesn't lend itself to exciting action. Not for a guy with his style and build and body type and whatnot. He's just not clicking in the ring yet, and unfortunately, this latest match was no exception. I think him and Anderson are starting to get the chemistry worked out a little bit, so this was a bit of an improvement, but it was still nothing special. Maybe I'm a little biased because I just don't like straitjacket matches. I never have. I always thought the gimmick was stupid. And frankly, after Lockdown, this feud had pretty much lost me anyway. And it's not like the wrestlers weren't trying here, but the gimmick is working against Shaw when it comes to what happens from bell to bell. And yet, it still seems to be getting over. It is getting a reaction. And that's what's got me so torn about this, because it's working while at the same time it's not working. And I just don't know what to make of it. I like the character except what he does in the ring, and I just wish they would change his wrestling style so his matches could be more exciting than they've been so far.
And that's the fishing line, 'cause Shark Boy said so.
Holy shit, we got an X Division match this week.
Yes!
My god, this happens so rarely these days. I almost forgot what show I was watching. Tigre Uno and Sonata are having a best-of-3 series over the X Division title. Okay, I don't know why they're doing it, but it's cool with me. I would prefer to see those two working as a tag team right now, but this does suggest that we'll get at least 2 X Division matches over the next few weeks, and that's more than we usually get, so hell, who am I to be choosy? Even rarer than an X Division match on Impact? An X Division promo segment on Impact. I mean, this was like 2 blue moons in one here. And even better, it involved the King of the Night, Kenny King. I never understand why they take this guy off TV for long stretches of time. He's got some real star quality if they just let him use it. He interrupts the match before it gets started, and he cuts this promo about how the X Division is lacking a real star right now. And let's be honest, he's not wrong. This brings MVP out, and I'm really not sure what they're doing with him right now. Is MVP supposed to be subtly turning heel, or is he just really bad at being a general manager? He told Kenny last week that he'd have something for him on this show, but he didn't. When Kenny confronts him about that, he blows Kenny off because the promo he's in the middle of could go on for a long time, and then he finishes the promo 5 seconds later. And now I'm supposed to boo Kenny King for being pissed off about that when he has every right to be pissed off? Sorry, TNA, it doesn't work like that.
I will not participate in this charade this evening.
But you know what? I'll take Kenny feuding with MVP over Kenny in the X Division right now. At least that way there's a decent chance he'll get regular screen time. And if he was in the X Division, I don't really feel like that would be the case. And this exhibition match they had was pretty good. Kenny didn't get buried or jobbed out. In fact, he kind of got the last laugh on MVP here. So I'm all for a feud with these guys. Kenny could get a nice rub working with MVP and be elevated from this, provided he doesn't just vanish from television for months on end for the 3rd time the second it's over. So fingers crossed on that. Well, apparently Jesse Goddard has a boo-boo, so the bromance weasel out of defending the tag titles. So the bad news is, the Wolves don't get a tag title shot this week. But the good news is, that means we didn't have to watch a bromance match this week. So, yay, glass half full!
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Here's my concern about the tag team division situation. If Tigre Uno and Sonata are going to be feuding over the X Division title for a little while, then we're down to 2 tag teams. So unless a new team shows up soon, or TNA re-sign Bad Influence, please, that means that this feud is just going to get dragged out indefinitely. But there's no mileage in it. The Wolves are the top team in the company now. TNA obviously wants to protect them and keep them looking strong, but the fact that they don't just bulldoze right over the glorified jobber placeholder champions who only have the tag titles due to a lack of roster depth just makes the Wolves look bad by default. TNA, you need some new tag teams, and you need them right now. Get on it.
Oh, my brother, testify!
Okay, the beautiful people are heels again, so immediately their promos go from here to here. I don't know if it's going to make their matches any better. This is still Velvet Sky we're talking about, but their characters are much improved, and that's something. Please, TNA, let's not try to make Velvet a babyface again. Ever. Well, it sure was nice to see Brittany again, after she defeated the top knockout in the company in her debut match and then wasn't seen or heard from for 3 weeks. I was starting to feel like they'd forgotten about her. But they didn't. And they've got a nice little storyline for her here. And Madison has a match against the beautiful people, and Brittany wants to be Madison's partner and prove herself to her hero. Initially, Madison says no, Apparently because she'd rather be in a handicap match for some reason.
This is unbelievable. This doesn't make any sense.
Eventually, Brittany wins her over and they partner up. Although, Brittany seemed very eager to hold that Knockouts Championship belt when she was talking to Madison. It was very subtle, but that little moment was what made this whole thing work for me. Because that was what showed that there's more going on here than just glorifying the fucking beautiful people again. You could see it in Brittany's body language when they were walking to the ring, too. I really hope it's not going where I think it's going, which is Brittany turning on Madison eventually and joining the beautiful people. But I could see them doing an obsessed fan angle here, or maybe a single white female type of thing. Not sure how I feel about that yet. I mean, I've never seen Santana Garrett work as a heel before. I think she's probably better off as a face. Her acting ability is a question mark until she proves otherwise, and she's got some flashy, crowd-pleasing moves that she couldn't do if she's a heel. Also, they're really lacking good babyface knockouts right now. The closest thing they've got to an interesting one is Madison Rayne, for crying out loud. Personally, I'm really hoping they keep Brittany a babyface for the time being, at least until Taryn Terrell comes back. So we'll see. But this does give her some kind of character to build on, and hopefully this angle is going to be more about developing that and getting Brittany over than anything else, because if we're beginning another era in the knockout division where the entire damn universe revolves around the beautiful people, then this is going to get old real quick. Anyway, they have this match with Velvet and Angelina. Velvet and Angelina, who I swear looked like they got dressed in the dark during a blackout with their eyes closed and blindfolds on. Jesus H. Christ, their new ring gear was hideous. That was some of the gaudiest, ugliest ring attire I've ever seen. Whoever dressed them up like that needs to be fired immediately. Oh my God, was it bad. Then they win the match, and of course Brittany eats the pin, because Lord knows we couldn't put over the new knockout who hasn't been established yet when we've got two women who have already been around for years and accomplished everything they're going to, rehashing a gimmick that got stale years ago. I know there was more to it than just this, but why would you want to make Brittany look weak so soon after she just beat Gail freaking Kim in her debut match? But it happened after Brittany tagged herself in because she was just so overeager to prove herself, and it backfired. I don't like that they jobbed her out in only her second match to put over a gimmick that I wish had been put out to pasture by now, but there is a story here, so at least it was motivated by something. As long as this is not the start of Brittany getting lost in the shuffle, then I'll give this angle some time. I like how this Fatal 4-Way World title main event was built up. They had promos to find out where each guy's head is at. Oddly enough, Eric Young suddenly wants to be the world champion now when he didn't last week and was totally focused on Abyss. I don't know what the hell that's about. That was some sloppy writing right there. And then Magnus has an in-ring segment with Corporate Kane, who... Oh, excuse me. I mean Abyss. And he's trying to grease the wheels a little bit and keep Abyss on his side. And all this was pretty well done, I thought, and it got over the importance of the match. Admittedly, though, you did kind of have to turn your brain off during the match due to the Abyss factor. And this goes back to MVP making a lot of really questionable decisions as the authority figure. And trying to drive a wedge between Magnus and Abyss is smart. Somehow putting Abyss in a world title match when he's supposedly not a TNA contracted wrestler, that is not so smart.
Congratulations, you just renewed your idiot license.
If Abyss was still a TNA employee, that would be different. But as far as the storyline is concerned, he's not. Think about this, MVP. Say the plan works. Abyss turns on Magnus during the match and wins the world title. The belt's off of Magnus, but now you've got an even bigger problem, because now your world champion is a free agent who could walk out of the company, sign with WWE or Jeff Jarrett's new promotion, take the title belt with him if he wants to, and you'd be powerless to stop him. Under the circumstances, I would think that Magnus as the world champion would easily be the lesser of two evils here. All things considered, putting Abyss in this match was probably one of the stupidest things MVP could have done. Am I wrong about any of this?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So you really had to take this with a grain of salt. If you could do that, however, this was actually a really nice main event. Everyone worked hard, there were some good spots. There were a couple different storylines going on, but they added something to the match without overshadowing the wrestling. Also, the finish was satisfying too, and made sense with Abyss being tempted, but choosing not to turn on Magnus, at least not yet. And Magnus technically wins the match clean for once, due to his own cunning and his own machinations this time, rather than a crap ton of interference or some bullshit Deus Ex Machina. That's good. Magnus really needed that. So, while there were some story elements here that made no damn sense whatsoever if you think about it, the match and the booking here were actually pretty good. Hey Magnus, here's a crazy thought. Abyss works for you now. So if you're ever in a situation like this again, threaten to fire him if he doesn't A, help you win, or B, simply lie down and let you pin him. Just saying. This was the second Impact in a row where, though it was flawed, I thought the positives outweighed the negatives. I'm not forgiving the creative missteps, but if you can get past that stuff, this was a fast-paced, wrestling-heavy show, which is pretty rare for this company these days, that wasn't dragged down by a lot of convoluted bullshit or power struggle nonsense. The world champion wasn't made to look like a total geek for a change, and I was left satisfied and in a pretty good mood when the show ended. So while they do still have some big kinks to iron out in the creative process, I ended up liking this one more than I expected to. Oh, and Dixie Carter's back next week. Yay?